live here. This
I don't know. We're
live.
playing
We're
the
live though.
Are We
So,
Live game.
well, I'm alive. Are you
You are
alive?
alive.
So, welcome to. We're checking to see if it's for reals. I might need to reset that.
It doesn't show on my end.
Mine's not showing on my end.
What the actual? This is so frustrating because it shows live on the thing. Wait, it's showing live. Wait. Yay! This game we play. Seriously, it's so annoying.
If you've got that one, then I'm going to just take this one off.
Yeah.
Okay, so, hey, welcome to Wednesday, August 21st, 2024, to the live and unscripted broadcast. For those of you who are new to the broadcast, podcast, videocast, whatever you want to call it, this is your host, Jennifer Saunders, and my co-host,
Leah Spout, Ligia.
Or JJ. I forget sometimes. So this podcast, broadcast, live edition of what we do, it's always live. It's the platform here is to talk live and unscripted, where we let inspiration be the guide. A lot of times we're talking with guests who we've met on the street, and we just invite them to the broadcast, and then we ask one question, and we start usually what is an absolutely beautiful conversation. So it's a practice in listening to inspiration. It's a practice in actually listening and asking questions, and then asking more questions from the things that they are speaking to bring it out. So it's really fun to see what comes out of this broadcast. And sometimes we go on like this because we haven't summer's been busy and we just haven't reached out to any guests. So it's coming, but sometimes we just like to come on and also let inspiration be the guide to our own musings and our own thinkings and our own lived experience and things that have been taking place in our world, or possibly just like conversations that we've been having with other people or hearing in our wanderings. Sometimes it's off of things that we've read or listened to, and
just our own conversations that we play out.
And so our own lived experience and conversations. And so I think that's actually what's going to take place today. So welcome. If you're new, I don't know that we're broadcasting to my personal page over here on the Facebook, and also to the Righteous Rebels.
Yep.
We're not.
It's not there.
We're not on Righteous Rebels.
So it'll have to be shared after.
Or on Insta. We're on our YouTube channel, The Righteous Rebels, and to our Instagram pages today. So that's kind of fun. That is if everything's working correctly. And if it's not, it's just the way that it is. So we always like to start with just a little bit of breathing practice as a way to just give you a simple tool that you can use every day, many times a day, that helps bring your head, your heart, and your gut into coherence. It's also an opportunity to just take a pause when intelligence goes up, when emotion goes up and intelligence goes down, and you can save yourself from doing something really stupid or making a dumb decision that if you had just had a pause could have had maybe a different outcome. So it's also an opportunity for us to just really get in the space and inviting you into that space of inspiration. And if you've got questions as we go along, feel free to pop those in the comments. We most often see them. But for now, let's simple breathing. Let's just do box breathing today, which is breathing that's been used by different companies, organizations. I heard one time it was originated in the military. I really don't know. All I know is I like it. And it's easy and can be used often. So it's a breathing in through your nose, deep down into your hips, your sit bone, into your pelvis, and filling your belly like you've got a balloon in there. And 4 or 5 count. We'll do whatever count works for you. Then you're going to hold that inhale for the same count. breathe it out through your mouth for the same count, and hold the exhale for the same count. As you do that, you can just breathe. Just focus on the breath. Focus on what it feels like to actually expand beyond your chest and down into your belly. If you want to, you can breathe in uplifting images or uplifting thoughts and let go of anything that feels heavier as you're breathing out. So we're going to leave that up to you today. We're just going to focus on the actual intake, the hold, the expression of the air, and the hold. And so let's do the first one together. As you do this, we always invite you to take a downward gaze or closed eyes, whichever feels best and most comfortable for you. And then we'll set you on your own to do a couple sets for yourself. So the first one, I'm going to close my eyes. And I like to put my hand on my heart. Extra connection. Breathing in. Holding that breath. Exhaling. Holding that exhale. And let's just have you do a couple sets on your own. Awesome. And you can finish up whichever set you're in. And I'm just saying thank you. It's such an easy way for me I get excited when I come on here, and I get nervous when I come on here because there's not a script. There's no set questions. There's no set topic. We toss stuff around. And I just get excited to be on here and to share with you and to be with you. And I love the breathing because, again, it brings everything just into a slower mode for a moment. I can feel things start to connect, come into coherence, and then we can get ramped up again. I would love to hear your experience. Sometimes we will talk about it or do different kinds of breathing. But I just encourage you to just take the time to practice that at least once a day and several times a day. I was like, what's going on?
I'm trying to fix the other issues without being distracting to you.
Oh.
And I don't think I'm doing a very good job of that.
There were issues that I was unaware of. It must have happened when my eyes were closed.
No, it was I was playing around with it while your eyes were closed.
That's funny. Anyway, okay. So today, let's just get with it. Housekeeping. The bathrooms are wherever your bathrooms are at. Feel free to grab your snacks and yummy drinks. Today we're drinking Olipop. We're not sponsored by them, but we would welcome if they want to. Actually, no housekeeping for us today. We're in a end of summer. Kiddos are here. Kind of craziness, like I'm sure the rest of you are, as school has started for some of you, or your kiddos, and it's getting ready to start for the rest of you. We're kind of in that phase too, and just all that comes along with that. And honestly, I haven't been in that stage for a long time, and so it's kind of thrown me a little bit. And it's like, whoa, I have felt tired. I have felt cranky sometimes. It's
a lot of change, and it's just a lot of different ways of doing things, and having to hold space for things you're just not accustomed to, and noise that you're not accustomed to, and the incessant need kids have to touch things that you're not accustomed to. Yes. Yes, definitely. Yeah. So it does take a lot more energy. I think the sound one, or the constant like coming at you when you're not accustomed to that, it gets to be a lot. Or all the questions, but why? I want.
Why can't I? How come? I want it. I want it now. I want it now with some swear words like It's real.
Yeah.
And the silly thing is we all still do it. We just do it in different ways. And I think that's what I like about what we've talked about as a possible conversation today when we're live.
Sorry.
Evidently we're live somewhere else that I didn't know about.
So I got it to work on Rebels and my Instagram. I must have closed yours, but we're learning. We're trying new things and just ways to.
We're just adding more platforms.
Yeah, because we can.
Yeah, it's fun. But that's what I like about communication is we've been talking a lot about communication. It's like probably one of my number one things. And as far as what goes in relationships, and that's relationships with each other, that's relationships with you, it's relationships with work, people, just in community in general, and just part of being a good human is learning how to communicate what's going on in your head and in your heart, and to do it in a way that is both expressive and not creating collateral damage, which sometimes happens. Like that's just.
Well, and I think like you can talk about outward collateral damage, which can mean like lashing out at someone or whatever. But I also think that means when you don't express yourself, you cause internal collateral damage, and you can get sick, or you can just feel lower energy, or you can't sleep at night because something's
brain
not resolved.
Fog, not being able to make decisions, and all of the things.
Yeah. So either way, like there's some form of collateral damage that's going on, and it's who are you going to choose? Are you going to choose it to be a win-win-win, like everyone involved, including yourself, or is it going to be a compromise of like they get what they want, but I don't get what I want and I'm suffering, or I get what I want, but they don't get what they want and they're suffering somehow? Like, how do we create win-win-wins?
So taking that and going with our current situation, I know we've had some conversations about that, and some tough conversations about that, because it's tender. Like our kids, we're mama bears. Let's be real. Like, and our kids are our kids. And even when we're bringing other amazing adults into their life, they're still our kids. And so what do you feel like have been some of those conversations that we've had as far as communication goes? How do you feel like we've done it well? And how do you feel like we've really just kind of muffed it up and just we actually haven't, but it's just been clunky. I think it's just felt clunky at times because our emotions are in it and our own feels. And this is part of also just FYI, what we do is we have an amazing relationship, but amazing relationships can be messy too, because we're human. We have our own sets of feelings and emotions and backgrounds and things. And they're coming together, and I'm not speaking anything that you don't know, but when you see people with an amazing relationship, you can almost be guaranteed they got shizzle going on, if they're being honest. Because when you come together in those kinds of ways, it brings up deeper stuff. And for healing and communication, you really have to learn how to communicate that stuff. So we share it. We do our best to work through whatever it is, and then we share the lessons learned and the processes that we used, and so that you can do the same.
Yeah, I think I appreciate you bringing that up, because it's offered myself just a beautiful place to explore, and a safe space. I can't emphasize enough the safe space to unknowingly relive patterns or re-engage in patterns that I didn't realize I was doing, and just have someone that mirrors that back to me, like, hey, I'm noticing this stuff, and it gives me a chance to look at it differently. It doesn't mean that it's always a nice thing or non-collateral damage kind of experience, but it has given me tools and languaging to help understand what some of that is for me. In my previous relationship, I think I just numbed out a lot. Like I just stayed as busy as possible. I used to like be in awe of people who took time to watch TV. I'm like, how do you take time to watch TV? There's so much to do. And like, whether it's a cleaning thing or creating thing or doing things with, like, I was so good. And I'm sure like many of us out there are so good at keeping ourselves busy, to a point where it's not until we're sick that like our body's like, oh my gosh, you are not listening to me. You're going to stop. I'm going to make you stop.
I've been giving you clues
yeah.
all along the way and you keep ignoring me. So
yeah. So it's been really cool to have those conversations and learn. It's vulnerable. It's freaking scary and so vulnerable to say, I need this, or I don't like how this is going, or because sometimes you're not sure. For myself, I'm going to speak, is sometimes I will share something thinking that I'm being vulnerable, but I didn't check in with, like, I just spewed the feeling out, not really checking in with how I'm communicating that and how it could be received on the other end. And that can cause a space of hurt, and not intentional. I think I'm just like doing the thing of sharing, but I'm not always recognizing how it's going to be received.
Well, and I feel like when we get in those, I call them spaces. It's like a space. It's because it's not who we are. It's just a space in time, or in, the lived experience. It's just a space. Leah has hated it when I call it a space, because can I say that? Like, in my experience, we've had the conversation of, she has taken it as that means it's bad.
I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah. And the reality is, it's just a space. It's a noticing that something's different, and that behavior becomes different, and speech becomes different. And so I think when you're talking about wanting to share the feelings, it's that checking in with yourself of like, oh man, the thought has escaped me now. Is
it coming from the space of like open heart, or is it coming from a protective space?
Yeah,
is what I'm
yeah. Am I really sharing my heart and what I really feel, or am I just I'm thinking I'm doing that when really I'm just dishing out more hurt because I'm hurting, thinking that and it's totally unintentional, but it doesn't feel unintentional. Like, you really have to be like, in yourself, you really have to be emotionally aware of who you're talking with, where your own emotions are at, why it's hurting you, and then be able to have those conversations. And it took a minute for us to be able to have that conversation.
Yeah. As you were talking, I was thinking, like, I just had the parallel of like when we do creative unraveling on Thursdays, when we were doing the painting podcast, the paint cast, you would talk about how you feel like the clunkiness and the static that would come up when you're trying something new. And I think that's kind of how I feel in this space of like, I don't want to mess it up. And I put so much emphasis on doing it right. And I don't allow it to be a canvas, like to just create on. I want to get it right. And I've prided myself on being compassionate and aware, and like being mindful of how I communicate and how I move through the world, so I'm not hurting people. So when I'm in that space of like, I'm not sure what to do with this, because I don't think I ever really gave myself a lot of space to feel things anyways. I think my biggest example of that was when you were trying to give me comfort, I don't know, a year ago, and how like I felt porcupine, like super prickly at comfort. I didn't even realize I had an issue with people giving me comfort, because I had never needed it, or I never I couldn't receive it. I didn't know how.
Yeah, that was an interesting experience on my part too, because I come from my lived experiences, like helping provide comfort, like noticing that in people are feeling the need for comfort or added support, and to be able to have someone be like, I don't need your comfort, don't like that was jarring for me.
You
And
say it like that, but whatever.
no, but when you're in that space, like, and you're unaccustomed to it, it's not necessarily comfortable for you.
No, because it
Because
feels
you're
almost
like,
patronizing
yeah.
and condescending and like.
And why is that? Like, in your experience, because I'm sure someone out here may feel that as well. Like, I don't need to be comforted. I can do things on my own. Like, what is the?
It's not even that. It's almost
That's what
like
I'm asking.
mocking,
Mm.
and almost like, just like it's not okay. Like I don't need that. Like I'm bigger than that, and this isn't bothering me. I think I was in such a space of like feeling like I needed to be Teflon, so nothing could bother me, but it also made it so nothing good could come in too.
So what shifted for you? Like, I mean, we're talking about communication, and comfort is part of that, or can be part of that, depending on what's going on. But when did that shift for you? Or what shifted for you?
Conversations, just one, recognizing it, seeing when it comes up, just having a space to talk about it, and really leaning into my own bravery of practicing. Like it's a practice in vulnerability, and I think I had just gotten so accustomed to doing things by myself and for myself and like for everyone around me that it was difficult for me to let that go, and admit that I had my own needs, or admit that I wanted comfort, because to want something and not get it is heartbreaking. So it was a way to protect myself, and I'm still working in some of those places, and it's not always easy because it's super vulnerable and it feels super scary.
Well, and I think a lot of times too, like if I can shift the tables just a little bit in regard to that, I think when we just noticing, like in having these conversations with you and other people who have been in my world throughout my lived experience, is those who don't really want to receive comfort don't always know how to give it either. Like there's a I don't know, it's just kind of like a wall of like, well, you should know how to do this, or you should. How did that play out for you?
As far as how
It's like
of
not being
comfort?
Of thinking you don't need comfort, or that comfort felt patronizing. How did that work for you when you, because I know you have a kind, giving heart. Like you have empathy for people. You see things and people differently. How did that work for you to be able to see those who could use it, but if you can't give it, how were you able to, or if you can't receive it, how were you able to provide it or give it to others?
I don't know that I was really good at that. I have always admired in the time that I've known you how open you are with people, new people you've known for a long, like you just have a very, very openness to you. For myself, I feel like I have always kind of hidden in the doing of things. So I was more than happy to cook a meal for someone, or more than happy to offer some sort of service. Like I would clean up your yard, or I would make something, or I'd watch your kids, or I would do something. I have never been really good. Like after someone has passed, I'm not super good at knowing what to say. I'm learning that I don't know what to say, but I'm here for you is something that you can say.
It's honest.
Yeah.
And that's vulnerable as well.
I think because I'm still learning that piece. I don't feel like I'm super good at that. And I'm really good at just, I'll watch and I'll be there for support. I don't know how to communicate that because that still feels awkward and clunky to me. not that I don't want to, it's just I'm still learning what that feels like for me. But then I think of my kids, that to me is an easier space, that I can just say what I need to say to them.
Why do you think that difference?
Familiarity, knowing them, even I think of when so my mom had a child before her last one was born, that she lost at around 5 months pregnant, and they just didn't talk about it. It was there, but it was never talked about until many years later. I think I asked her about it, but it's not something that I've really practiced in my world. My grandma, oh my gosh, my grandma was so good at that. Some of the ways you interact with people remind me of how she was with people, just so open and caring. And like, I remember a story when she got married later in life. She moved in with her husband in Nicaragua. They had a lady who cooked and a lady who cleaned. And this one lady was celebrating 20 years of service to this man, and he was just gonna fluff it off. And she's like, "What do you mean?" And so she gave her gift cards for this, and she made her a nice meal, and got her. She made the day special. She knew how to do that really well. So I think for myself, I'm still learning, and I'm observing, and I'm getting to observe that more in my time with you, and how we go out and meet with people.
So thank you for that. Thank you for all that. I'm wanting to boing some of those compliments, and I'm just going to say thank you. I appreciate that. I love people. I feel like I see people differently. I feel people, and I love hearing their stories. I love, learning what makes them tick. And I think that's one of the things that I have enjoyed, but has also been a challenge in getting to know you more, and you on a human level. This is one of those relationships where you go, I know you. I know you. I know you from, I don't even know where I know you from, but I know you. But getting to meet this version has been an interesting and really cool adventure. Hard at times, honestly, sometimes just challenging, because it challenges my own emotions. It challenges my own lived experience in places that still have hurts. It challenges the things that
difference of culture,
have very much difference in culture and lived experience that way. But my own skills that I've learned by way of communicating and intuiting and all of those things. And I love it. So when we're talking about communication, what are some things that stand out? Sometimes the prettiest thing, and how do we, in your experience and your words, how do we come to that place of common ground? And because it's one of those things of reaching for the other person, seeing past what's going on and the circumstance. And I always say, what is this about? This isn't about
so frustrating sometimes.
The thing that's just happened. There's so much emotion behind what you're now talking about and saying, what is this about? What is the real thing that this is about? And I know that angers you.
It's just frustrating, because it's but this is what happened, and this is how I see it. And when you challenge that, I start what's that called? Scrambling for, what do you mean? This is what happened. And I get very logical. But this is how it went down.
So logical. It's challenging.
Yeah. So we had a moment where there was an interaction, and I felt really hurt by the interaction, and
I didn't even really realize, because I'm not in her head, why. Because we
but
were
I
just
didn't
doing
even know why.
right. Because in my mind, I'm like, we were just doing what we normally do.
Yeah.
And because you had stuff in your head, like it was an interesting experience. So
yeah, and it took probably, into the next morning, and I'm having a tantrum because I'm still feeling.
And tantrums are okay, friends. It's okay to admit that we're having tantrums.
Yeah. I'm feeling like I'm having a tantrum, but I'm trying to just be okay and work through whatever hurt that I'm feeling. Still focusing on what had happened, but not looking deeper into what's behind the meaning I'm putting to what happened. And I think it was just
like in that situation, what flipped for you though? Like how did we come back to?
I think you just calling me out on like how you felt, and that I didn't acknowledge some of the feelings that you were having in that moment, and how it brought up, how our interaction had brought up other things for you, and that I didn't ask you about that. And then I felt really bad, like that our interaction brought up past interactions, and that I wasn't sensitive to that.
Well, it brought up my own places where shame still wants to rear its ugly head.
Yeah.
On mine, because I was like, I'm always like, how do I reach you? How do I reach past the logical part of you that feels like it's making a lot of sense? And I have to really stay on top of hearing through the lines of how do I reach the heart of all of this. And I felt like one thing that was in that moment was like, what's really going on? And when I said to you, I want to understand, and this is a key for you in part of your conversation and in your relationship with your people. This is a big deal, is to say, what is this really about? And to mean it. It's not said in a patronizing way. It's like, what is this really about? Because
help me understand.
I want to understand what this is really about. I want to know what that hurt is for you, what may have created that, and to know that piece of you. I think that's also one of those places where that like softening, we call it melting, started taking place, of like, whoa, there's actual care here and thoughtfulness. And
well, I think something you say to me too when we're in those spaces is like, when I'm in those spaces, is I'm not all the people who have hurt you before. And you've said that in other places, but it really struck me in this last time, that I'm recognizing I'm recognizing a pattern, like in myself, and that you say that this is old patterning. This isn't you. This is you. Like, I recognize that something has set off my, what's that called? My tripwires for like
all your defenses.
Yeah, the defenses of like, oh, when this happens, then this is going to happen, and this means this, and this, like, I
got to act like this.
Yeah. And we have to guard up, and we have to protect ourselves, and we have to do these things. But I think in the last time, just the way you said it, I recognize I am attributing how I've been hurt in the past when that's happened, to this interaction, when I just had to remember you're different, that you're not all the people. And I've really resisted and fought that idea. Like, I am not treating you like this. This is not true. Like, how dare you say that? I'm way more aware than that. And like,
especially when I'm in my really logical space and my brain is taking over. not doing its actual job, because that's the job of your heart, friends, not your brain.
Yeah. So I think just that was part of my softening too, is remembering you are on my side, and you have been really just how you defend my, like some of the rules that we've had with the kids, or the way you stand up for me when it comes to some hard things with another person in the dynamic, or the way you listen, like just remembering all the things that that make me feel safe with you, and not letting one moment that's triggered a whole bunch of other memories set off how I look at you, like completely turn how I look at you, that I can't feel like I can be open with you.
I actually really appreciate you saying that, and thank you, because I feel like that's another really important takeaway from this conversation, is to really check in with yourself. And I have to do it too, because and Leah has returned that favor to me of like, I'm not that person or that thing or that situation that created the hurt. Is really getting in touch with your own heart. And it's not your brain's job to, it's not math and calculations. These are matters of the heart. And to get in touch with your heart and be like, why am I so upset? Why am I so angry? Or why do I feel so sad or so hurt by this? And to really get to where that ouchie may have originated or close to it. And to recognize that the person that you're in relationship with isn't the other people or the other situations or the other circumstances. There's someone who's here wanting to be in relationship with you, and it's okay to gently remind the people that you're with. I'm trying to decide how to say this. To gently remind the people that you're your people, that you're there for them, that you're not those things, that you're here to listen, and you want to understand, and you want to hold space for their heart and their hurts. And just as you would invite and want them to do the same for you. And for you to not see the people in your world as all the other things that have hurt you. And that can be challenging.
It is. But I think when you keep asking the question, like, what is this about? Because it was asked more than one time. and I'm also asking myself, and it's sometimes like the stuff that first comes to your mind when you ask that question, we discard it because we're like, no, that's dumb. It can't be about that. This is about this moment. Right. And we ignore it because we can feel embarrassed about it. It feels too vulnerable to share it. There's shame attached to it, that, we're going to feel stupid or think that we look stupid. When the reality is, if we can just be humble enough to allow ourselves to admit it, it can just bust down that barrier. I think that for me was like, when I recognized it, it was so hard to talk about, but when I recognized what it was, I was like, oh shoot.
And even though, like, I saw the moment, I saw it wash over your face of like, oh, and then the hesitancy to actually want to speak it. And I think those are some of the most beautiful moments, because you're both in a really vulnerable place. And it's a place where, again, I feel like inspiration can come in, and hearts can start connecting, and coherence that way happens. And it just takes you to this whole, I'm going to even use the word transcendency of the situation, and to new levels of learning and understanding, one of yourself, but also of the other person, and then what's going on between you, and then being able to take that and move from that next level. And the reminder that you're always going to get opportunities to practice. I'll say that again. You're always going to get opportunities to practice. I have to remind myself that often. When I learned a lesson, I learned this cool thing, and now I get to practice. The thought just left me.
Bye.
Right. It's just that, I think it's just that the feeling of like the peace that comes in after that of like, wow, okay, we kept ourselves in check, and we talked about the really hard things. Communication can sometimes be very challenging because you want to be heard, and you want to be heard, and you want to be felt and
seen and acknowledged,
and it's finding that way to make sure that you're doing that for the other person as well, because that's exactly what they want.
Yeah.
And staying in it long enough to let it happen.
And sometimes we just need some support. I think of the interactions between my youngest and you yesterday, that because we have created a safe space for sharing, and we reiterate to the kids all the time, like,
okay, wait, how old is he?
He's 9.
He's 9.
And the other boy is 11. He'll be in 11 2 weeks. But just reiterating like safe spaces. And we had a breach of safe spaces because someone was tired and someone was just feeling overwhelmed, feeling kind of homesick.
Then someone wanted to have a tantrum and feel my own inner child want to be hurt, and
yeah,
and just recognizing like, ooh.
Yeah.
So how do we go about that when, as far as communication goes?
I think how I started with him is he wasn't in trouble. He wasn't scolded or anything. I just approached him and acknowledged how I perceived he was feeling. You know, acknowledged that he's tired. We had a busy day. We were out on the water all day. That because I found him passed out. and that he's been away from home for the last month, almost a month, and that can be challenging, and he's really missing, you know, his dogs and his home and the people in his life. And, you know, so I started with acknowledgement of where he could be hurting, and invited him if there was something I was missing, like I'd love to hear it. But also reminding him of the agreements that we had made in this communication relationship that we've been talking about
and inside of this household, as far
Yeah.
as that stuff goes.
Well, and honoring safe spaces and asking him how he would feel if I shared things that he didn't want shared. It's not about secrets. It's just about holding space for one another.
Well, letting your hearts be heard, like creating a space for vulnerability, no matter what the age or the situation.
Yeah. So we just talked about that and just talked about, you know, how you were feeling from that interaction. And he came down after a little bit, and he was in a whole different mood, and he was all chipper. And
before you go there, this is how I communicated this. One, when I saw Leah, I said, hey, this just happened, and I let her know my part. And I was feeling like this. I felt very betrayed, and I felt like we sometimes feel with our kids, and I'm like, fine, I'm never doing another damn thing for you. Like, you're going to act like that and be so unappreciative and throw me under the bus. Like, I just was feeling the agitation of that. And I said to Leah, I found myself wanting to start pacing the house. And I just looked at her and said, I'm going to go walk the park. I'm okay. I just need to move this through. Like, I communicated that.
Yeah.
And then I still felt stuff, and I didn't want to come in because I knew there was tension. And so I grabbed a baby sledgehammer and I took apart some stuff that needed taking apart.
But I appreciated that you did that, instead of me getting into stories of like, oh, she's so upset and she's so mad, blah, blah, blah. Like, that you could tell me I'm just working through this and I need to move some energy. That helped me stay in my own space of like, okay, I can talk to the boy, you know, and so you're working through your part of it. And then my son wanted to go on the iPad for his screen time. I'm like, well, let's take a pause. I really, in my past relationship, it was really common to just gloss over things. Things weren't really ever addressed. Things weren't discussed. Feelings weren't shared. Like, it was just kind of move on and be happy. And I know for myself that, or anyone really, like, you can always tell there's something going on, and I didn't want him to continue in that cycle of just pretending like everything's fine and just moving on with
well,
the
he
day.
felt better. Let's be real. He felt better.
He felt better. Yeah.
He had a bit of a power nap and he felt better.
Yeah. So I said to him, I really feel like we need to make this right, because we're going to be spending the next 8 days together. And I just don't like the awkwardness and the tension. And, and I reminded him. So the day we were talking about earlier, where I was having a tantrum, you brought me to the room where the kids were, and you're like, see this face here? This is your mom having a tantrum. And in the moment, I was so mad.
No, she was pissed.
Yeah. But at the same time, after we had our conversation, we could go back to the room and be like, and this is why we need to communicate, and this is how it looks like, and we could talk about it. So it played in beautifully into this moment with my son and Jen, and encouraging him to have a conversation, and reminding him that adults have tantrums, kids can have tantrums. I never expect them to be perfect, but I do expect them to be accountable. So he had a lot of hesitation. I mean, like he's like, he knew what he had to do. But I said to him, like, just lead with your heart, let your heart speak. And kids already know how to do this, and we beat it out of them.
I agree.
We really do. And he was really nervous, because he's also one that doesn't want to do things wrong and get in trouble and that sort of thing. I'm like, you know, as well as I do, that Jen's really good at honest conversations, and just lead with your heart and tell her how you're feeling. Like, be honest. Like, she's okay that you miss home. She's okay that you messed up. You can even say, I had a tantrum, and she'll understand that. And it was really cool that he went out to talk with Jen, and I didn't know the conversation right after, but after he had talked with her, he came in, he's like, oh, I feel so much better. It's like so good to have honest conversation. And he was like so happy. And I just think that was so much nicer of an evening that we had after.
For sure.
So,
and I mean, he's 9, and he came out with just like the most humility. Like, he knew he had breached trust. He knew he had, and he said, I was just tired. And I could just say, yeah, buddy, like, I get it. Sometimes I feel tired too. And I miss home. I said, yeah, like, of course I would miss home too. Like, and I named off the things, not knowing the conversation that they had, but incredibly, we talked about a lot of the same things. So he got a reinforcement of that, because we talk about it, and we talk about it openly with them. But it was a beautiful thing to have this open, honest, vulnerable conversation with the 9-year-old. And just to say, man, I feel that way too sometimes. And one day we came out of Walmart, and I had enough. Like, had enough. And they wanted to turn the music up, and I just said, no, I am on the verge of a tantrum, and when I get home, I'm putting myself in timeout. So to be able to remind him, like, hey, remember, sometimes I feel like I'm going to have tantrums too, and I would rather have you talk about it than act out. And it was just really cool. So
it's just for reinforcing.
I was like, give that gift to your kids
and to your partner. Yeah. And just to say, like, I am here for you. I am willing to listen, and I want to do this with you.
And ask for what you need. It's not always easy. Like, let's be real. It's not always easy, especially when you've been in a pattern of being turned down or shamed or that it's not important or that it's silly or that it's whatever. Sometimes it's not easy to ask for what you need. And sometimes those needs are things like a nap. I just need a nap.
Or something different in the schedule. Like we put so much onus on ourselves, and like that we have, especially as moms, I feel like that we have to look after everything and everyone, and we put so much on ourselves and we don't ask for help. And we also don't allow the people in our world to be there for us. And they're not sure always how to offer help. When really that's so much what we want. We desperately want that, but we don't want to ask for it because we don't want to be a burden, and they don't know how to help. Like it just creates this weird dynamic of just.
So communicate to your people that you're there for them, and communicate to the other people, especially the little people in your world, that you have your partner's back and that you guys are together. Like you work as a team, but that you work as a big team, as a family too. And no, this is not a lesson on blending families or any of the things like that. This is just our lived experience of communication in the last little bit, and how it has played out in the last month. So, and that's just been some of the topics and ways that it's played out.
Yeah. Well, and I just want to really emphasize it's not just with who you are with or who you're interacting with. It's you have the most interactions with yourself, and just learning to be honest with yourself, give yourself space, ask yourself what you need, and give yourself the space to take what you need, gift it to yourself and not feel guilty about it.
And that part, there's no need to feel guilty about it.
But know that it is vulnerable. Like it's so vulnerable and scary and
brutal.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
And challenge yourself. Like, are you going to die? Like, are you going to die if you do the things? Like, it feels like that because it feels so dang scary.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know what happens if you don't change it or if you don't do something. So why not try? What if you did? Practice being brave.
I love it.
Yeah.
And you know what's really cool about it too is it makes the really good moments so much gooder and so much funner and just
more relaxed,
more enriching and healthy, and because joyful. You're learning how to manage both ends of the spectrum, because we're human and we have both ends and everything in between, and to just let it be okay. Like we've just been taught that a lot of that stuff, especially on 3/4 of the spectrum down, isn't okay. And the reality is it's more than okay. We had this thing yesterday, and I think we'll do a different broadcast on that. But just to bring it up really quickly is we've been having quite a few conversations lately. And I mean, really, we hear them all the time. And have been a part of them and have been a part of saying the things of how we just let life get in the way. And the reality is, friends, life is the way. Life is the way. Everything else is just an experience. Everything else is just an experience. Your businesses, our businesses, clout, things, climbing ladders, all of that. Life isn't getting in the way of that. Life is the way for that. We're here to have experiences, and life is the vehicle that allows us to do that. So communication is a huge part of having a beautiful life in all of the areas that you get to experience in that life. So I'm just going to end that there. We'll have another conversation on that later because I feel like it's a big conversation.
Yeah.
But I just want to say thank you for joining me today, for your own vulnerability. I know it's challenging, and I just want to
Oh,
acknowledge like
wait.
how far you've come, like that, and I'm not like I'm really celebrating that. I recognize it, I notice, and um, just really openly just saying, "Dang, good work, babe."
Thanks. I have to remind myself in those moments what you say often. It says nothing about you. That it doesn't mean that's who you are. It's part of the experience that you're having. And honestly, this is challenging for me to share, but I'm going to share it because I believe in the power of it. Um, Not being heard and not feeling seen, and just continually brushing things under the rug, because it feels too scary to have hard conversations. There have been some very painful moments, very just challenging things to move through, but it pales in comparison to how I was living before, in like a quiet desperation, just drowning in silence and all the things that aren't said. So as hard and vulnerable as it is to move through some of this, I'm learning so much, and I'm so grateful that I get to move differently, and I get to pass that on to my kids and the people I interact with. So thank you.
Yeah, and I'm learning so much. Like I'm I'm getting to practice the things that I know and the things that I'm gifted with, and brushing off like rusty places that haven't been used for a while, and recognizing my own just like moments, and things that still cause me pain, or that I haven't maybe healed as much as I thought I had healed. And um so I'm learning too. Like it's incredible. And yeah, there have been moments of it's painful, but I know that that pain doesn't last when you communicate. It's like, I hurt this finger the other day, showing the 11-year-old how to box jump. I haven't box jumped in a long time. And so I didn't put it on the tallest one because after this experience, that might have, I'm glad I chose the middle one. So I'm jumping on the box and I didn't get my fingers out of the way, and I whacked them hard into the box. But this finger has been so painful. And now I've almost forgotten what we were going to talk about, why I was bringing that
Guarding.
up. Oh, yeah. Um, and I've wanted to be super protective of it because even just a gentle touch to the finger was really painful. And while we were out on the water yesterday, I'd asked the kids, we were hanging out on we were in the water, and I had my hands up on a paddleboard, and I said, please don't mess around on here. This is quiet time for us, and we're having conversation. And in this instant that happened so quickly, like I don't even really know what happened, I felt the most intense pain and the sound come out of my body. I was like, what? It was almost an out of body experience. Like the pain was so intense, and it lasted for longer than I would have liked, but it didn't last a really long time. And today I actually can bend my finger, so it actually might have done me some good to have it nailed on or whatever was taking place. But also I feel like wow, allowing that sound and acknowledgement of pain to leave my body, that's healing. That's healing. And when we can take care of it in the moment versus trying to protect it because we don't want to hurt, and then we create other situations for hurt, and we keep protecting instead of just talking about the things and communicating and actually allowing ourselves to heal in the moment. And that's probably the crux of what we're talking about today, is just recognizing the pain and recognizing maybe how we've covered it up for a really long time. And so a situation that happens right now, we think is what's going on when really it's something way back. We can apologize for things that have happened right now and be like, oh, wow, but like get to the crux of it. Get to the root of what's actually creating that and take care of it. And when something happens right now, take care of it. Take care of it now.
An example that comes to mind is like, say you're in a husband and wife dynamic of like, there's dishes left in the sink and you've gone to,
or it could be just, spousal relationships.
Yeah. I feel it more the other way, that it's more common.
It probably can be.
But that it's not about the dishes not being done. Like, it's more about feeling like you're the one that has to always do the things and not feeling like you can relax. Not like, it's not about the dishes. It's about all the feelings that come because the dishes weren't done, or that you have to ask for the dishes to be done. When it's not just yours to do. Like, if you're in a partnership, there has to be a give and take for it to work.
Well, and you, as you're talking about it, you sent me, I don't know, was it a TikTok? But someone sharing the reminder of like, why are you in a relationship? Are you in it because of what the other person can do for you?
Oh.
Like, is that why you're in a relationship? You like the idea of being in love? You like the idea of being married? You like the idea of whatever it is? Or are you paying attention to what you can add, what you contribute to the other person and to the relationship itself? And communication is a really, really, really important part of that. Probably the most.
Right. Oh, okay.
Wow.
That was quite a conversation.
I love it. Thanks for joining us. I would love to hear your ouch. I just whacked my finger. Still tender. I would love to hear your thoughts and your own, like, if you have an experience about communication that you want to share, a relationship, we would love to hear it. And if it's something that you want to share in more depth with us, reach out. Let us know. We'll private message us. We'll have a conversation. We'll set up a conversation. And maybe if you would like, we can even invite you to be a guest to talk about your own experience. And we can practice communication that way as well.
Cool.
We're, like I say, we're in a space of just shifting ourselves. We're shifting some things in the Righteous Rebels. We're shifting, and we're shaking out the rest of summer. So nothing on the schedule to look forward to as of yet, except, yeah. And you know what? We're just going to let it be okay, because that's the way it is right now. And we're not going to fight it, and we're not going to force it. And we encourage you to do the same.
Yeah.
So with that, remember, be bold,
be brave,
be a rebel. We'll see you soon.
Bye. It actually worked this time, Dad.